welcome to vlog number 9, part 2, the history bit. I am finally sitting on the farm that I've wanted to share with you for some time now. It is a farm from the 1800s that is preserved on the lake in which I live. So this is a very, very special place where Selbuvotter first arrived to be exported out into the city of Trondheim. This door that I am sitting in front of is a most beautiful handmade door. The metalwork is handmade. It's all, the key lock is carved. Everything about this door is absolutely stunning to me. Actually, the museum is closed, and unfortunately, I had an appointment to come and take you into the buildings, but because of illness and just timing with the organization that runs the farm, I'll have to come back in the springtime when it reopens. But I have free access to walk around the farm and to tell you the history that I want to tell you today. So we're going to look around the farm. There is on this farm a washing house. There is the main farm building. There is the barn. There is an underground shelter, which was also used for storage. There are the fields beyond the barn where you can just imagine that the animals were kept. The most exciting thing, there is a historical dig going on here, and they have found some tools that are from the Viking times. So this is a very exciting place indeed. I look like a complete mess because I hiked here. It was a beautiful afternoon, and I was just feeling so, energized, and thought I would just hike right down here. So, if you remember when we left the story before, we were talking about how the people of Selbu were knitting these Selbuvotter in exchange for goods. And then, of course, World War I hit. Now, during World War I, these were desperate times. And the people that were knitting the Selbuvotter, they began to get a little bit sloppy with their knitting. So the war caused a mass production of these mittens. So if you remember, I told you about how the patterns were so rich and intricate and so many fine details, especially that you will see inside the Selbuvotter book. The richness of the pattern, the details, and they were connected to farms. Well, now things were getting a bit desperate, and the patterns started to lose their richness, the intricacy, and also the stitches became looser. They started using wools that were spun thicker, and they weren't as warm, and they began to get really sloppy. So there were two entrepreneurs that were actually exporting these grinding stones for wheat out of Selbu. So they were made there by some special stones or whatever, and they were also exported out of Selbu. And because of this experience with exportation, these two men, they thought that they should maybe get some sort of quality control for these Selbuvotter. They introduced a standard or a quality control, and within this standard and quality control developed something called a Husflydslag. Now, Husflyd means house precise, or flyd is like being specific or careful or precise with your knitting. Now, if you visit any major city or large size village, you're going to find a Husflyd store. In Oslo, Trondheim has one. There are other places. But if you go in there, you're going to see quality knitting, quality artwork. You're going to see precision and the finest craftsmanship. So the Husflydslag, the precise standard and quality control group, they began to say, okay, we're only going to exchange your Selbuvotter if they pass this certain standard. And so the people would bring their mittens in, and they had to be a certain quality. They had to be knit at a certain gauge. They had to be knit with precise patterns and so on. Now, the reason I tell you this is because if you buy a pair of Selbuvotter that, you know, a person like you or I have not knit themselves, but you're going to buy an official pair of Selbuvotter mittens, some original proper ones, you're going to get that tag on them. It's going to say Selbu Husflydslag, and I think it's AS, like it's incorporated or something like that. Selbu Husflydslag created this standard because the knitting got sloppy, because things were being desperate because of the war. Now, once this standard was met, once the knitting was precise, once the Husflydslag was going, and everything was under quality and control, then the exportation began to happen. And so they brought the mittens across the Selbu lake to this farm. This farm was the intake of all exports, not just Selbuvotter, but also these stones, these grinding stones that I talked about, and so on. Now, you might wonder why they brought them across the lake. Well, even today, if I'm going to go to the Selbu village, the fastest way for me is by boat, because I would have to drive all the way around the city. It's quite a ways from me, the village, when it's just a straight shot for me on the boat. I can take a motorboat right across the lake, and I can be at Selbu within 45 minutes. However, if I drive, it's closer to an hour and a half or so. Might be a little bit longer. The boat saved time. Now, what's very interesting is, on the other side of Selbu, in that area, is Sweden. And so not only the Selbuvotter were exported over this lake, but pilgrims came through Selbu, over the lake, and here to this farm on their way to Nidarosdomen. So here on the farm would have been kind of like an inn. So they would have taken in pilgrims, they would have taken in lodgers, they would have helped you unload your goods, they would have helped you to load that up on the horse and cart or however it was transferred into Trondheim. And again, I might have said this in the last vlog, but this road that I travel every day over the mountain and so on was the road of exportation into the city of Trondheim with all goods. It's not lost on me that this road has been traveled by many, many people and Selbuvotter into the city. They would have stopped and maybe had some food. They might have had an overnight here because, of course, it would have been quite different travel. Like me going into Trondheim now is like 35 to 45 minutes, but it might have been like a whole day's travel then. So they might have stayed here and stopped here overnight. So this was a working farm. Very interesting history indeed. The barn is the original barn. This is the original stallbud. The house is original from the 1800s. So it's quite a wonderful place. I hope you enjoy the footage that I've shared and that you enjoy seeing this place that allowed Selbuvotter, the pattern, to come out into the world.